Accenture, we've been doing this for, as I said, I personally, since 2015, we formed our practice before that even. We have three focus areas: digital identity, supply chain, and financial services infrastructure. And those are the main use cases where we're seeing trends across the world, right? So the way money moves, right? Financial services infrastructure, trades, digital currencies, central bank-backed currencies, is all in that financial services space in the infrastructure space. I spent last week at Sibos in London where we had every blockchain provider there talking about what they're doing and how they're innovating and bringing new innovation in that space. Don't get too close to the speakers, or I'm going to give you some feedback. I love space, so that's okay. But identity, every use case starts with identity. If you're going to really, change the way you go across a network of people and do business together, you need to really trust that who you're doing business with is a known entity, right? So if I want to automate more and more of my processes and transactions, I better understand who I'm transacting with and be able to identify a bad actor in that situation. So digital identity, we have an entire practice about it that is focusing on not just self-sovereign identity, starting to get to where we own our own identity, but then working in a corporate and enterprise structure and how can we use that information in a better way. So if you look at this picture here, I like this slide because it has, we can storytell for hours on this slide. It's a lot of our kind of key marquee opportunities and things we're doing. And we actually put this together for an Investor and Analyst Day recently. But our known Traveler Digital Identity Project is cool. The Government of Canada is actually doing this at the airport between them and Netherlands, working together with the World Economic Forum and Accenture, where you can take the biometrics for your passport, right? So we now trust people to go through passport, border control with known countries if you're a pre-registered person, and you can kind of get through pretty automatically. I was sad the other day. I've been to London twice in the last month, and I don't have a stamp on my passport, and my kids like to flip through my passport and look for stamps. So, it's just sad, but it's because it's so automated. We trust the biometrics of I do my fingerprints, I take my picture, and they know who I am, and they can verify with a chip that my biometrics today match the chip in my passport, right? So there's a set of biometrics that have existed. The security has been trusted in a lot of border controls today. If you take that and you now make it extrapolated to a network where I can let other people check, are you, and use that information. They don't need to know my biometrics. They don't need to know my fingerprints. They need to be able to ask questions of the data. And a distributed system like blockchain allows us to get to that point where we can have other trusted parties say, is Melanie Melanie? Like, I went through the passport control and I'm checking at my hotel. Marriott should be able to keep my profile. I have to admit publicly, I'm a very big Marriott Starwood loyalty person, and when I end up in an off-brand hotel, I always have a funny experience, right? So the Government of Canada, the Government of Netherlands is working together with the World Economic Forum to actually let you get through security in this new way, and then share your identity through with another set of known parties, and do this. And that distributed system lets you get to keeping the data secure where it needs to be secure and shared where it needs to be shared. As you look across I like that car example. So RiskStream Collaborative, used to be known as RiskBot, is a group of more than, I think, 180 insurance companies in North America. So first notice of loss was their use case. So I am generally a good driver, but if I were to hit you, your insurance company would make a claim, my insurance company would make a claim, and we hope that both insurance companies say it's the same incident, right? Because lots of fraud happens and all kinds of confusion if I mistype my insurance number or my social security number, all that information. So they're taking a very it's not a how well do you first share information between these parties? That's not why you pick your insurance company. It's a very commoditized activity of messaging that goes back and forth. We have lots and lots of messaging. So the insurance companies are coming together to form a consortium to say, how do I share data and information in a more easily shareable way through a blockchain? And they're building use case upon use case now that they have a network. So they started with the network, they started with a use case, now they're making that to production, then they'll bring more and more and more use cases on. And the idea is there's money coming in to solve an industry problem, that historically was my company and your company are going to talk, your company and your company are going to talk. Or you throw one person in the middle and say, we'll all transact through this, right? We'll put a hub and spoke model together. And then we all got to trust that that person is going to keep our vault of information safe, right? And so there was no data segregation in central parties. If there is, and you trust the central party in your industry, you keep trusting them. You don't need a blockchain. Move on. You're done. Move on. It's just simple, right? So there wasn't a, I heard it referred to recently as there was no adult in the industry to kind of keep the industry to behave. So sometimes when there isn't, then there's these ideas where you can come together as an industry, funnel together your funds, build assets that grow you along the way. And our practice, just for fun, I've trained probably 2/3 of these 2,400 people in heavy in-depth experts in blockchain. So I travel the world and get to do fun academies and things where we've got thousands upon thousands who are trained, but the amount of experience that's actually starting to build into different use cases in different areas is a lot of fun. Our partners, as I was saying to Tom earlier, we are at Accenture fiercely independent, which means that I get to look at all of the vendors in the space. So I spent time with R3, I spent time with Digital Asset, I spent time with Hyperledger, probably all of them last week. We've got partnerships with Microsoft, I spent a lot of time in Seattle, Intel last week as well. There's so much innovation happening in this space. And what excites me about blockchain is that there is no fiefdoms yet, where people are like, I'm gonna win the entire blockchain market. Like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of innovation, we all have a lot to learn, and we're sharing in really incredible ways, even in those competitive situations. So that's what gets me excited as a technologist. Interoperability is on the rise. I was on a panel last year with Cliff from the ASX, who the Australian Stock Exchange is building. They are that central authority today. But their stock exchange is building a blockchain. They're very public about it. It is in beta testing. It's in customer testing today, so that no longer do you have to go to them to get your data. You can actually have your own instance of your data and transactions that you transacted across that stock exchange. So it's a slightly different deployment model. It is a central deployment model, but the ability to have, we all have a shared source of truth on these transactions, and I no longer have to wait for you to write me an API to get to my data. I see it, I have it, I can do what I want with it. His quote at that conference was, I am so excited to have a solution that's good enough that somebody needs to build a bridge to me. So interoperability to him was a problem. It was, bring it on. Like, once I have a solution that's so awesome and you want to build a bridge to me, I bet you there'll be good bridge builders out there. Since then, we've put out some stuff together with our partners around getting, there's the same story of what is my database going to look like? Am I going to use a SQL database? Am I going to use no SQL database? Like, there's been these innovation challenges for years. Now we're just saying, here's a new category of technologies. Did I pick the right one? Well, you're not going to probably pick the right one first time. So start with, are you driving business value? Are you getting something done that actually adds value to your business, right? Like, Ford is the famous innovator who says, right, if I ask my customers what do they want, they said they want a faster horse, right? Like, we're in that space where we have no idea what the requirements are. Get started, get going, and build it in a way in which, the user experience is going to stay the same, no matter what your back-end blockchain is. And so over time, we're going to see these interoperabilities, we're going to see abstracting away the blockchain to where it's just a way in which we store data and information in a different way, and you might swap them. I've seen a lot of use cases swap over time. So the technology is important, and it gives you a lot of features depending on what platform you pick, but it really is an enabler that is going to continue to evolve across the market. So the way, I think you guys have heard lots about what is blockchain. Just one thing that I think is a fun takeaway is, we've been looking at automation, RPA, and AI for years on streamlining business processes in the four walls of the company, right? And in order to do that, we'll do messaging back and forth to other parties. I have my copy of my data, you have your copy of your data, you keep yours secure behind a vault, I keep mine secure behind a vault. I never know that your DBA doesn't go change the data someday, right? That they don't go run an update and say, I'm gonna go change the status of everything, right? Like, oops, didn't mean everything, I meant everything yesterday, or something. So I don't know that they're keeping the status of my transaction correct, so I keep a copy of it myself. So we've been in this messaging world for years, right? As we get to distributed networks, we get to a shared source of truth, to where we're actually looking at the same status, the same transaction at any given time, and I see what you see. And when I get to I see what you see, I actually, in theory, could delete my copy of stuff, because I actually have a very trusted, like the only way I can change the status of a given transaction is through this block. Is it backwards? Is that better? Okay. I'm so sorry. But I want to get to the point where in any given time I trust a transaction, what its status is, what its workflow is, where it's going, who's talking about it. Not just I have to call you and ask you, or go to a portal and look for it, or go to a solution that says, here's what the latest and greatest status of a given transaction is. I can actually have a copy of it myself. And I see what you see. And when I see what you see, then we don't have to reconcile, right? We get rid of exception processing. I actually sit in Accenture Operations, which is our business process outsourcing business, where we're actually in an exception management business. The entire existence of many of our people are to make those phone calls and be like, hey, your invoice says $200. I thought it was $150. Why are you charging me for freight? Like, what are you doing? Why is this wrong? How do we fix this? How do we get back to normal? All of that exchanging of data back and forth is because we got out of sync. Because I made an assumption, you made an assumption, I streamlined my process, you streamlined your process. So when we get to I see what you see, we can actually streamline and get rid of the friction that exists in business. And so you can look at it at lots of different examples. But what I think is cool about blockchain is everybody wants to share more data, but they don't want to share all data with all people. Right? I'm not going to go I make a purchase for $1 million of parts that are going to go into something really critical to my business. I don't want everyone to see the price that I paid per unit for this $1 million worth of goods. I want my bank to back the transaction because maybe I want to take a loan on it and I can do some trade financing along the way. And I want my logistics providers to know what data I expected so that I can see it along the way, but I don't need my logistics provider to know what my unit price was and accidentally end up on some blog talking about, hey, this is how they got a competitive advantage or something. So the idea that is evolving with some of the variants within the blockchain space is we got a big old Venn diagram happening now. I can be a part of a transaction, but not a part of every piece of a transaction. I get very specific permissioning down to the field level of who sees what and who participates in a transaction. And all my data is not everywhere. Encryption is fantastic, but it's not enough. Right? If I have all my data distributed around a network all around the world, and then 10 years from now, 20 years from now, right, we say the average age of encryption, I think it's like 12 years, I forget my stat, but it's about 12 years. So 20 years from now, somebody takes an old copy of a distributed system and unencrypts it, and they can now see everything that's in it. Encryption is not enough to make it through enterprise security solutions. So we've got to actually segregate the data. And so what we're seeing is more and more data segregation is key to making a blockchain use case successful. Is I'm going to have all my transactions that are privy to me, you're going to have all your transactions that are privy to you. We can share, always know and trust the same source of truth, but not everyone everywhere. So today, in those one-to-many situations, you have somebody proven in the cloud, they've got all the data. Now if I want to get to a many-to-many without a trusted party in the middle, the only way to do it is through a distributed system. I don't believe there are other systems that are out there today that are in that use case. And we can't let it be free-for-all. You still need to govern the network, right? So you get your many-to-many, lots of people are participating, you still got to draw a big circle around and say who's going to do the rules of engagement, the governance, and make sure that people aren't doing wrong, bad actor things and identify them and kick them out of the process. So the easiest example I think it is, I started at Accenture in 2000 just for fun, implementing Ariba procurement, and it was a network, right? We were building the network. We had to onboard all of our Accenture suppliers so that Accenture could use a new e-procurement tool and had things like catalogs and prices and invoices and POs, and that technology has been around for a really long time. But in building networks, we've had documents. We pass documents back and forth day to day, right? So we have no other way to contain information. Like the healthcare example this morning, right? Is I go to the doctor's office, and then they say you have to go to the lab. Oh, well, let me fill out another form. Like, I just said it again. Another form, because they don't have a way to say these 5 fields are approved to go to that party and that party and that party, right? So we're moving from documents to data. And when you actually can provision the data you want to different people, now I can let this whole industry start to come together in a new way. We're seeing, one buy-sell transaction, $1 million in goods. We can now let in our logistics providers, our third-party insurance companies. We can let in our banks. We can let them see the transactions that are happening real time and actually see the same source of truth. I have teams in Accenture operations that do invoice reconciliation and find that mismatch of cost. Turns out banks do too. They do it all over again. So there's so much efficiency that can be gained when we actually share data and information in a way that is more transparent. But there's not only just efficiency. And I would argue that you shouldn't do a blockchain use case just to save on processing time. You should do a blockchain use case because there's new information and value-added services you can do on top of the processing time, right? So there is, to put some scale around it, $56 trillion in working capital trapped in receivables at any given point in time. That is, I gave you some goods, I might have 30-day, 45-day terms, I'm waiting for you to pay me. $56 trillion in our world is suppliers waiting for their buyers to pay them. That working capital, if you could actually trust that those goods were on the ship, and that $1 million in inventory is really a thing, and who owns it, and there's fraud in this process all over the place, right? But if I could actually secure and say I know what those goods are, where they're at, and all the parties who need to see the status of that transaction, and can hit the stop exit button, something happened, it fell overboard, whatever, and you can actually secure that, $56 trillion of receivables could actually be financed against. It creates secondary markets and entirely new business opportunities. Imagine if you were a logistics provider together with an insurance company, and you could say, there is a storm coming your way, and I know where the ship is. 80% of the world's goods go over ships. Do you know that? 80% of the world's goods actually travel across an ocean in a ship. So most of your goods, when you go to the grocery store at some point, right, came over on a ship. If you can say there's a weather event, and your stuff's going to expire, and you can redirect it somewhere else. Or you can offer extra insurance because you know they're going to need it. Like, you can provide new services and tap into these dollars in ways you don't want to. And what always gets me excited is the feel-good story, which is $1.6 trillion in little suppliers are denied access to capital because they don't have enough credit, right? So they can't lean on the credit of the big company buying for them. They can't actually participate in the world's economy. $1.6 trillion is denied. That's not even I was denied once, so I wanted to go get lots and lots more capital. There's a real opportunity for us to bring small guys into this story, us to start bringing new value to new partners because we can trust who they are. Right? If you can build a reputation score in this ecosystem, you can start to have more trust and more opportunity to kind of grow in new ways. So it used to be a couple of years ago, every time somebody wanted to solve a blockchain problem, you had to go teach them how to code, and then hire an architect and teach them a platform, like pick a platform, teach them how to think through the ecosystem across all their parties. This is just a sample of a few of them, but there are people and networks and consortiums that are coming together to where it's becoming a shopping experience of what network do I want to join, who is there, how does it change my industry, and is it going to solve my problem? And so I believe that you're going to start to see blockchain commercialized solutions coming together in these networks and consortiums to where if you need a blockchain, you're going to go find which one exists. And if it doesn't exist, and you're the big industry player, well, you should probably get the name. If you're not the big industry player, go figure out what they are doing, because everyone is taking a step. We always advise if you need to have a blockchain strategy now, but your strategy might be weightier, right? But you need to take the time because the rules are getting made across the ecosystems for how business is going to work together in your industry, and you either let those rules happen to you or you help shape those rules, right? right? And so as you think about when we get to really frictionless businesses, which are, getting rid of the messaging back and forth, when we get to a shared source of truth in new ways, when we get rid of the old construct of documents, move them to data, we can do business together in new ways, we can provide new opportunities, and at the end of the day, we all win, right? Because we as consumers get to see things that are uniquely customized and fit that customized, personalized experience throughout every ecosystem. So there's an example of purchasing and such. We've got examples across, like I said, all these industries. In my role, I get a chance to look over ecosystems as a whole, so we've got lots more use cases. I will be around for probably at least till noon today, and then back tomorrow all afternoon. So I'm happy to have conversations, as John said, some of the best follow-ups are definitely one-on-ones. I was listening. But happy to talk about this. This is clearly just my passion, my everyday. So thank you all for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Melanie.